Hello, all. This is Devika from MITSD, and you're listening to the MITSD podcast. More people than ever prefer listening to information bits, pro tips, or educational content on the go. And this podcast series is here to discuss the latest advancements in different industries, share some cool corporate tips, the opportunities, and the strategies that will help you become a pro professional. On this note, I'll hand over the mic to our very own Professor Bonnie Rajesh, the academic content lead for marketing and business communication.
Welcome, dear listeners, to the fifth episode of the MIT SD podcast on our exciting personal development series. I'm your host, Professor Bonnie Rajesh, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join us today. In this empowering series, we've been delving deep into the world of personal growth and exploring various aspects that can help us become better versions of ourselves. Whether it's boosting our self confidence, mastering effective communication, or embracing mindfulness, we've covered a plethora of topics that contribute to our personal and professional development. Today, we are diving into a crucial skill that holds immense importance in the corporate world: diplomacy at the workplace. As we all know, the dynamics of the modern workplace can be complex and challenging, with various personalities, interests, and opinions colliding. Being diplomatic not only helps us navigate these waters gracefully, but also fosters a harmonious and productive work environment. Through this episode, we'll explore the art of diplomacy and its practical applications in the workplace, from handling conflicts tactfully to building strong relationships with colleagues and superiors. We'll uncover valuable insights and techniques that you can immediately put into practice. Whether you're an experienced professional or a fresh faced graduate stepping into the workforce, the wisdom shared in today's episode is bound to be invaluable in shaping your career growth. So sit back, relax, and get ready to enhance your diplomatic prowess in the workplace. Now, without further ado, let's unlock the secrets to being diplomatic at the workplace and unleash your true potential for success. Diplomacy is a powerful social skill that helps build healthy relationships. It resolves conflict and encourage people with differing views to work together. Diplomacy is the art of handling delicate social situations in a very sensitive way that respects other people's feelings. It is sometimes referred to as a tact. Now, there are certain key traits and behaviors of diplomatic people, and you will find them that they generally can have very difficult discussions without damaging the relationships they have with other people. They are generally calm in tense situations. They understand that humans aren't always rational, so they don't take other people's negative reactions personally. They also have the ability to pass on bad news and criticism in a very compassionate way. They are the ones that respect the fact that everyone has a very unique perspective, a unique opinion, and they try to understand other people's opinions. They do not try to win arguments, instead, they try to understand other people's perspective. They're very good at mediating between two or more people who don't see eye to eye on an issue. They are also problem solvers who try to find solutions that address everyone's needs. They are also polite to everyone, even those who can trigger or irritate or even anger them. Now, the next big question: how to be diplomatic? I'm going to give you a few tips that will help you handle sensitive situations in a very calm and graceful way that gives everyone involved a chance to feel heard and understood. The first and the foremost step is to listen carefully to others. Now, you cannot be diplomatic unless you understand their position and feelings. To see things from their point of view, you first need to listen, which means you need to be an active listener, which again means you need to give people your undivided attention when they are speaking. You allow others to finish their sentences. You try to focus on what others are saying instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. By listening carefully, you may use verbal or non-verbal cues to show that you are paying attention. For example, you could say, "Okay, go on. I understand." "Oh, is that what happened?" Or you can even simply nod your head when they make a key point. The next and the foremost important tip to be diplomatic is to ask questions to improve your understanding when you are listening. So, even if you listen carefully to someone, you might not immediately understand what they are trying to tell you. It can help to ask questions to check that you've grasped whatever they are saying. Now, what are the kind of questions you could ask if you're unsure what someone else is meaning? You could ask questions like, "I'm not quite sure what you mean. Could you tell me a bit more about it?" Or, "Could you expand a little bit more on the point you made about XYZ?" Or, "Can I check if I've understood you properly? I think you're saying that XYZ." So you try to rephrase the sentences that you have heard so that both of you are on the same page from time to time during the conversation. The third most important tip is try to empathize with others. Now, empathy involves imagining yourself in someone else's position and seeing things from their perspective. If you can empathize with someone, it may be easier to speak and behave diplomatically and deal a very, very delicate social situation. This is because when you understand other people's feelings, it makes it easier to choose both what to say and how to say it. The important step is write down key points in advance. It is not always possible to prepare for a tricky discussion in advance. However, if you have an opportunity to plan what you'd like to say, well, it's a good idea. I would suggest to make a bulleted list of everything you'd like to cover. A list will help you focus on key facts and issues, which can make it easier to have a clear, constructive conversation. Let's say, for example, you're having a meeting with an employee because they are persistently late to work. Now, your objective is to find out why the employee isn't turning up on time. So, you might write a certain list like this. You could ask him, you know what, I have been observing that you have been late 7 days out of the past 10 days. Perhaps you care for an explanation, or better, any certain reasons or any stuck ups that you've been having because you have been arriving late in the morning, something where we could help you with? Or how can we solve the problem so that you arrive on time? So, by referring to this list during the meeting, you may find it easier to stay on track and engage with your employee so that you can resolve the issue together. The idea is not to go back to the problem, the idea is to look for a solution together. The next most important tip to be diplomatic is to keep your emotions under control. Now, I know this is a very, very difficult tip, but if you're quick to lose your temper, the person you're speaking to might lose respect for you, which can make meaningful and diplomatic communication very, very difficult. So, if you're feeling angry, upset, or frustrated, try to calm yourself down first. So, what you can do is perhaps you can excuse yourself for 5 minutes. You could go back to your room or to your cabin, do some deep breathing exercises, or you could even ask yourself before the outburst, will this really matter in a week or maybe in a month or maybe a year from now on? So, this will help you to keep a sense of perspective. It will also help you to stay calm. The next important tip is to use softening language. Now, this is very, very tricky over here. Diplomatic people are honest, but they know how to soften criticism, rejection, and bad news by using gentle language. For example, instead of using negative adjectives, use a positive adjective and not a very accusatory word. For example, instead of saying Prakash's note taking skills are very poor, instead you could say Prakash's note taking skills um, has got some room for improvement. You could even use certain examples like the workstation, or let's say This project seems to be like a complete mess. Instead of coming very curt, you could say, in my opinion, or perhaps in my observation, the project looks a little bit hazy to me right now. Would you care for further explanation? So you see how soft, how you are launching yourself softly with that particular language. You could also use certain hedging words instead of going directly to a certain judgment. For example, instead of saying that's a terrible idea, you could say, I'm not sure whether we could go ahead with that idea. Try to use negative questions. For example, instead of saying, we need to re-evaluate this budget, perhaps you could reword it by asking, don't you think we should re-evaluate this budget? So here you are asking for an opinion. You are looking for a solution as a team. And try to use the word sorry, not very often, but it is important that it comes as part of your soft launch. The next tip that I would like to emphasize is to try and show your concern and not emphasize on other people's fault. Now, if you need to talk about what someone is doing wrong, avoid making generalized, sweeping statements such as, Rekha is too mean to our clients, or Rahul never tidies up, or he's always creating mess after every client meeting. Instead, try to focus on specific concerns, bring about facts and possible negative outcomes. Now, for example, let's say that a new employee has joined your team. Although they try hard and are pleasant to be around, it becomes very clear that they don't have the right skill set yet for the job. So, as a team leader, you need to decide to raise the issue with your manager. So if you said, Raj isn't very good at his job and I don't think he should have been hired, you'd put your manager on the defensive and potentially create an awkward atmosphere. Instead, being diplomatic could sound like, Raj is a really nice person. He's extremely positive to have around, but I'm quite worried about whether he understands what his new role involves. Now, this is a concern. The next step is stating a fact. Here goes. Now let's state a fact. Last week, he told me that he did not understand the terms used in his presentation about customer service. Next is a possible negative outcome of this particular fact and concern. So here goes. Our team will struggle to get everything done if he isn't sure what he's meant to be doing. Next step is avoid accusatory language. Now, in general, it's best to avoid starting sentences with you never or you always. These accusatory languages often makes people feel defensive on the first go. Instead, try stating how you feel and use facts always to explain why you feel that way. Now, this can help you avoid coming across as aggressive or confrontational. For example, instead of saying, you know what, you've been avoiding a lot of meetings or you've been drinking too much in the evenings, you could say, I'm a bit concerned about your absenteeism over for the past few weeks. You've been arriving quite late day after day, and it is quite concerning. Perhaps you would require some help from the team. So here you are stating your concern and you are not directly accusing the person of that particular action, although you are bringing to him the concern. Next important tip would be try to give suggestions rather than orders. Now, if you need to give a negative feedback, try adding a helpful suggestion alongside the criticism. When you make a suggestion instead of an order, you're more likely to come across a reasonable and collaborative rather than angry or overly critical. For example, instead of saying, do this report again and please make it easier for me to read it this time, you could rephrase it very easily by saying, maybe you could try breaking the key points down into shorter sections and some bullet points. That might make your report a little bit more presentable and easy to read. See how you have given him a solution. Next, pick the right time to hold tough conversation, a very, very, very tough call to make. So, if you choose an inappropriate time to have a sensitive conversation, you might make the other person feel defensive, embarrassed, or even angry, which can make it very, very hard to have a calm and rational conversation. It can help to ask yourself, if someone else were to tell me the same thing I'm about to tell this person, would I want to have the conversation at some other time or in some other place? Next tip, try to give a balanced feedback when asked for your opinion. Now, diplomatic people do not lie. I've told this before. And they do not hold back important information. However, they know that often negative feedback can be easier to accept if it's accompanied by praise. Next, use positive body language. Other people may be more likely to listen to you and respect what you have to say if your body language is open and friendly. Now, this is how you maybe can use, positive body language when you need to be diplomatic. Try to relax your muscles in your face and neck, and this can help you appear less stern and tense. Try to make that eye contact, but do not stare because holding someone's gaze for too long can make you come across as extremely aggressive. Avoid crossing your legs and arms as this can make you come across as defensive. And do not stand over someone when they are sitting down, as this can make you come across as intimidating. Next, try to have a very pleasant tone of voice. Even if your words are tactful, you won't come across as diplomatic if you speak in an angry, flat, or sarcastic tone of voice. Try to speak nicely. If you're preparing for a difficult discussion, it can help to rehearse what you are going to say aloud in private in a polite, calm tone. Next, always give people a chance to save their face. You don't have to make excuses for someone else's mistake, but suggesting a plausible reason for their error can be a good and diplomatic maneuver that allows them to save face. For example, rather than saying, "This presentation is full of spelling mistakes, fix it by tomorrow," you could say, "This presentation hasn't been thoroughly edited. I know you've been really busy this week. Maybe you didn't have the time. It would be great if you could proofread it again by tomorrow afternoon." Next, try to use assertive communication. Diplomatic people are sensitive to people's feelings, remember, but they don't allow everyone to walk all over them. They are confident but not aggressive and try to negotiate an outcome that benefits as many people as possible. Now, if you tend to go along with what others want rather than standing up for what you believe, along with using the assertive communication, it would be best to adapt your communication style to the situation. A mutual sense of respect and rapport can go a long way when you need to work with someone to resolve a delicate situation. To encourage them to feel as though you are on the same wavelength, try to adapt your vocabulary and tone of voice to suit the context. For example, try using very informal language in the workplace when you're raising a delicate issue with your boss may come across as disrespectful and unprofessional. And that brings us to the end of yet another enlightening episode of the MITSD podcast on the art of being diplomatic at the workplace. I hope you found this discussion as valuable as I did. As you embark on your journey to implement these diplomatic strategies in your workplace, do not forget the importance of self awareness. Take time to reflect on your communication style, emotional responses, and the impact of your action on others. Embrace feedback as a gift and use it to grow and improve continually. Additionally, stay open to learning and adapting. The workplace is ever evolving, and the diplomatic skills you cultivate today will serve you well in all areas of life, both personal and professional. As we conclude this episode, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our cherished listeners for joining us on this journey of personal development. Remember, the MIT SD podcast is here to support you in your growth, and we are just getting started. So stay tuned for more inspiring episodes and exciting content. Until next time, keep honing your diplomatic skills and never stop striving to be the best version of yourself. Together, we can make the workplace a more harmonious, empathetic, and productive environment for everyone. Thank you for being part of the MIT SD community, and remember, your potential for greatness is limitless.